Hello guys, welcome to Let's Play Air Tycoon Online 2 Episode 6. Today is a pretty fun episode because I want to talk about the viability of certain aircraft. And I'm going to feature the 747 airplane, which I usually like to trash a lot, but I also want to talk about why it's also somewhat viable, especially as you move from the early game into the mid-late game. So, in the very early game, basically you have not enough money to do anything you really want to. So the most efficient thing to do is try and make the most money as you possibly can for each aircraft you have. But later into the game, as is what is happening to me now, I'm ending up with too much money, more than I can possibly spend. As you can see, I have 58 million piled up, and that's just because I took a break from this game for a few days, and that's how much money piled up, a significant chunk of my value. After not playing for 5 days, as you can really see from this passengers graph, this real flat line here was about 5 days of inactivity for me. Since that 5 days of inactivity, I piled up almost half my value into cash, and it's basically unspendable at this point. I mean, if I'm my financial report says, I'm making 2.1 million a turn. If I were to spend this on the small aircraft I recommend, like from my tutorial series videos, where I talked about how using multiple Illusion 62M, for example, could make much more than a single 747. I simply can't order Illusion 62M fast enough. I mean, I can afford 30 Illusion 62M per turn, and I can only possibly theoretically order 40, which means, if I sleep for more than 6 hours a day, it's already logistically impossible for me to use only Illusion 62M anymore. Essentially, I'm stuck, and I have to, with no other choices, use larger aircraft, because it's the only way I can make the routes possibly work. So yeah, with that in mind, I'd like to talk about the Boeing 747. So first of all, it would be a lot better, of course, if my World Traveler Index was higher, but I realized there's actually a lot of ways to make this plane work. Now, as you can see, my current 747-300s are actually making decent money. Hold up, I was just deciding whether I should show the routes or the airplane from the airplanes tab, and as you can see, they're all making, somewhat decent money, especially on the upturns. And the newer 300s with a higher satisfaction are certainly having a much easier time filling up than the other ones. Additionally, I cherry-picked the routes to switch to the 737 47 100. So I'd like to, pretty much right now, let's just go through my remaining routes and decide whether I want to use Boeing 767s to replace these aircraft, or the larger Boeing 747. So, for example, this route, I would definitely use the 767 because Washington's a really small city, and while Tokyo is big and Pescara is a decent city, I don't really think that would be worth it. Same with Dallas to Manchester, though. It's making decent money this turn, which makes me think it could possibly make, but as you can see how far the profit dips during the downturns, this is definitely a route more suitable for a 767. So once again, I can change to a Boeing 767 and just charge max price on it, because why not? And I know the other half of the route won't have changed at all in pricing, but I'll be able to do that from my routes tab. So this is a competition route, so of course, definitely it will be a 767. Now, basically, the nice thing about later game is your choices of bigger aircraft start to vary a lot. So you get to choose between the 767 and the 747. Oh, and that just reminded me. I wonder if I decided to claim this route already. I found the route Barcelona to Rio de Janeiro. I have a feeling a player based in Barcelona quit or left the game recently, because I found that Rio to Barca to where is it? Bangkok became available. So this could in the future become one of my most profitable routes. As you can see, I found it last turn. So I really right now have no judge of how fill it will become. So yeah, I was pretty happy about that. So yeah, back to replacing my aircraft, is basically what I'm saying is there are some routes where you probably do actually want to use 747s, simply because even if it makes more money than the other ones, but not as a ratio of the cost. So, for example, if my 100K aircraft made 10K versus my 200K aircraft making 15K, while the smaller aircraft would have a higher ratio, so it pays itself off faster, the larger aircraft just makes more, and I want to spend my money off, so I'll just buy that one instead. So basically what I'm saying is at some point in the game you might actually reach the point where you want to be less efficient with your money, as long as you're actually managing to spend all of it, because sitting on money is the worst possible thing you can do in this game. Is basically, if your money is not making yourself more money, you're not doing it right. Like even buying sub businesses is at a very low ratio converting your money into more money, but it's still doing it, and of course that's still the most important thing to do. Yeah, so another thing I realized is for some reason 767s fill up really easily on routes which sometimes lose some occupancy. On Aleutian 62M have a very similar occupancy with a much larger 767, and I have a feeling it's due to a large increase in satisfaction. And it makes me wonder the power of satisfaction, because I don't invest much into satisfaction. I think I invest just enough into satisfaction, but I'm really curious to see the effects of it, because for example, why am I charging max right on these competition routes? That's not really smart. Because for example, if we go into my routes tab and sort by favorites, here we go. Here are some routes which aren't very big, but still, easily fill up these 767s. I know it's an upturn right now, so it's not entirely an accurate display of this. But like some of these routes, like aren't very large, but still, easily fill. Aircrafts using 767. And these are just some examples, like Hong Kong to Southampton. Not a great route at all, yet, quite comfortably 100% full. Not max prices, but, making good money. And these 767s consistently quite easily fill. And that makes me kind of wonder if I've been being too strict about the kind of routes I could be making, and I could just be, throwing out even worse routes, just la-di-da-di, and still making money from it. So I'm wondering if I could be more liberal with the kind of routes I make, or maybe it's the fact I'm so rigorous with the kind of routes I make that allows, those routes I just showed to be upgraded to larger aircraft, like some of the worst ones on the spectrum, like which I'd consider making. Some of those are the routes, not all of them, or some of the routes I would consider worse on the spectrum that I would make. And maybe it is just the fact that I'm relatively rigorous with the kind of routes I make that make it so that those routes can still be profitable even when upgraded to a larger aircraft. But I guess only time will be able to, tell if that's the truth, or if it's just the fact that I could be making smaller routes and still filling airplanes. Just not my bad for not doing so, and instead, like just holding on to my money, waiting for newer aircrafts to come out. So I guess I could, be more comfortable in spending my money, because for some reason, especially when the World Traveler Index is low, I'm not sure why. I just don't feel like making routes, even if I know it'll go back up next turn, and I know there's, I know I should be spending my money, like if I wanted to increase my value as much as possible. I don't, and I just kind of sit on it, and that's kind of odd of me, but I like to think of myself as a rational thinker, but I guess I'm just, a squishy human who thinks kind of really irrationally. So anyways, Toronto to Hamburg to Hong Kong, what? I kind of like Hamburg, so I'm just going to use a 747. Yeah, like I have 58 million. I really got to spend it. Like when I wake up tomorrow, it's going to have increased by, like 10 million again. So I started today with almost 90 million in the bank, value, and I managed to shave 30 million off, which is not bad. I basically had to request aircraft all day to achieve that. Like literally all day, I've just been requesting aircraft nonstop. So basically, I'm hoping that I'll be able to, slowly, dig into that today. or tomorrow, and like really just manage to actually like get my company rolling again. So starting to increase, at an exponential rate again, because I haven't done that for a long time. As you can see, my value has really stalemated. So yeah, I'm really hoping that, what I'm doing now and, actually spending the money I have is gonna help start snowball my company. And yeah, so as you can see here, um, what was I gonna say? I completely forgot. Oh yeah, as you can see here, I'm starting to get rid of these leased aircraft. All these 747s I've been replacing are all leased. So I'm thinking right now it's probably going to be a really really good thing. I should have done this much earlier. As soon as I had the cash, basically as soon as you have extra cash, which you don't feel like spending, immediately replace your leased aircraft. Basically, leased aircraft are only good, but are really good when you don't have enough cash to spend on aircraft. But then later on, when you do have enough, highly advise getting rid of them for your own aircraft, because you don't have to pay down payment for them. And if you do have to pay, like for example, lease expenses or whatever, what's it called? It's not worth it, especially when you have to pay taxes. And taxes hit like a freaking truck. By the way, I calculated that they will literally take away 30% of your net profit, which feels terrible. Yeah, so basically, like, yeah, just think of a 0.7 multiplier on your net profit, and that just feels horrible. But I guess it's better than taking 30% off your total profit, because then it would make it basically impossible to be profitable with a large company anymore. So fortunately, it's not that, though. I feel like if it was like that, I, out of all people, would be able to survive. Or people would just spam airports, which would also be an undefeatable strat in that situation. So all these Seattle routes really need to be downgraded, because Seattle is tiny in this world. It's kind of unfortunate that it is that way, but Seattle has dropped to, a state of being like I think the business and tour is like combined add up to 400, so to like 200 business, 200 tour, which is definitely the smallest Seattle I've ever seen. Like I played in a world with a decent world traveler index only once, actually, surprisingly. It seems to be always the worlds I choose which have really, really low world traveler indexes. Basically, once I played in one world which had a proper world traveler index, it was like 4,300 about at this time in the world. And I remember cities like Ankara, what's that place called in those cities in Poland, like Gdansk, not Warsaw, but like, I don't know how to say it, like Gdansk and like Shizlin or something. Like, a lot of random ass cities you might have never heard of in your life before are the size of Seattle. Cancun, like Tampa in Florida. These cities were all bigger than. They're all currently bigger than my freaking Seattle is now. Yeah, I also recall Milano like being like 650 or 700, like 350 business, or like 400, or like 300 business, 400 tour kind of thing, like that, which is, I can't even imagine that in this world, like how many routes that would unlock. But unfortunately, I can't have that. So as you can see, I've ran out of aircraft 747s. So I'll stop replacing for now, because I do want to replace these aircraft with 747s. But yeah, anyway, yeah, I just reminisce. Like you can see some of the cities in this world, how small they are, especially like Dallas barely makes 500. Um, oh my God, I remember Athens. In that world was 900 when you combine the business and tour. It's 600 or 650, something like that, tour, and 250 business, something ridiculous like that. Like, I can't even imagine playing in a world like that. I could fly a freaking 747 from like here to here and just direct, and it would make so much money. Like, yeah, in a war like that, really, it's immense. Like, you can do anything. Like a 767 from Athens to here in that world would, not only be completely. Oh, that's actually a decent round. Hold on, but like a 747 like flying between there would actually like completely fill max price min seating like almost any turn of the game. Yeah, I guess I really miss that kind of server. So I really hope if I ever play a full round of this game again, which who knows, I might not. I'm going to college next year, or university, whatever you want to call it. So I'm not gonna have time. Like I already don't have time to play this game in the school year, of course, because it takes. If you actually want to win against all the people with gems and airports and things, you gotta play a lot. Or you gotta design a really efficient company, or you gotta be lucky in getting a world with not a lot of competition. I remember winning a world where the number one player was myself, and I only had 300 million value. Also, an exceptionally small world traveler index, but basically my strategy in that world, which I think I played it in the school year too, was I basically just made sure my company was efficient, meaning I had a small amount of planes. I think I limited my planes to 800 in that world because it was during the school year. So I said, hey, if I ever hit 800 aircraft, I'm going to make no more routes. And that worked really well for me because I basically just had, like with only 800 aircraft, you don't have to do very much. Basically, I made my 800 routes or my 800 aircrafts probably in the first, week of playing, which was probably in a winter break or spring break or something for me. And then basically I just replaced the aircraft. I only have to log on, once every 3 days, once every 4 days, things like that to replace the aircraft, which were, starting to get really old. And that's really all I had to do. And I just held first place because I consistently made between, 1.5 to 3 million value in the later game, just by using larger aircraft on my consistently made, pretty decent, but like no competition stopover routes. And what I mean by that is sometimes if you push to make the biggest routes available, you're just asking to be competed with, and people will eventually compete with you, as you could see with my 747s earlier. But the kind of routes I made were just like, for example, things that nobody would really want to compete with. As an example, Atlanta to here. Like nobody will compete with me from Atlanta to this city here. Like nobody would bother. And I would just do routes like this and turn in a decent profit with, a 767 or whatever. And people would leave me alone, and that just made a constant, 1.5 on downticks and up to 3 million on upticks. And I just, sat on that basically from 1990 to the end of the game, and that won me the game. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I've probably been ranting for a really long time. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.